Alright, so let's just go over the last section of the mathematical achievements, question 25 onward. The first question is about books over the summer, average number of books read. It's a little tricky because they have the books on the x-axis and the number of students on the y-axis. So how we go about this problem is first counting or totaling the number of books. If it's 5 students reading one book, that's 5. If it's 8 students reading, and if it's 4 students reading 2 books, that's 8. We have 6, 4, 30, 12. In total, we have 65 books read. Then we have to see the total number of students, because remember, mean or average is the total number, the everything added up divided by the number of things that are happening. So in this case, total number of books divided by total number of students. So in terms of the total number of students, so we have 5 students who read who read one book, 4 students who read 2 books. So that's 5 students. There's 4 students there. You have 2 students who read 3 books. Then you have 1 student who read 4 books. Then you have 6 students who read 5 books. And then there's 2 students who read 12. I think, let's see, it's 9, 11 plus 9 is 20. So 65 divided by 20, because that's how you find the average, is going to give me a total of 3.5. So C should be your answer here. Not too difficult, just a little bit time consuming. Alright, number 26, you shouldn't have too much of a problem with, just simply because you've done enough problems like this that it shouldn't be too bad. So now the first thing you want to do is determine if this is going to be a conjunction or a disjunction. In this case, we know it's going to be a conjunction because they meet in the middle, right? So that should tell us that it's going to be less than, well, you kind of see that because all your 4 answer choices are less than, but that affirms it. The next thing you want to do is use that little trick that you got taught. The x minus average equals distance. X minus the absolute value of x minus average equals distance. And I'll explain that really quickly. Alright, so what that means is when I'm dealing with absolute value, alright, if they give me a number line, I'm actually able to tell what the absolute value equation or inequality is. So in this case, it's going to be the inequality. When I say the average, well, what I mean by that is I'm going to take the endpoints. So this is 1 and this is -7. So I'm going to take the endpoints. 1 minus 7 is -6. Okay. I'm going to take the endpoints and then I'm going to divide that, because there's 2 endpoints, and divide it by 2. I'm going to get an average of -3. So x minus average, so x minus -3 is equal to distance. Well, the average occurred right here. Well, what's the distance from that point to get to an endpoint? 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, and then this side's 1, 2, 3, 4. So now it's less than 4, because it's 4 on each side. So the x minus -3 gives me x plus 3 is less than 4. Done that problem. Alright. 27. 27's tricky for a few reasons, but I honestly took this to be more of a common sense problem than even kind of just going through the problem. Essentially what they're saying, a coin is tossed 3 times, the table shows the possibility of outcomes and the probability of each outcome. So it's saying the chances, if you toss a coin 3 times, the chances of you getting 3 heads in a row is 1/8, and that makes sense, right? Because the chance of getting a heads is 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. The chance of this happening 3 times in a row is 1, and you can't see that, but so the chances of getting heads 3 times in a row is 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2, which is 1/8, right? So that's the chances of that happening 3 times in a row. But not necessarily what they're going for here. They're saying, what's the expected number of heads, right? I can look at this chart, I can analyze the data, but what makes sense? What's the chances of, what's the expected number of heads that you're going to get? Well, you're expected to get heads half the time, right? If you're going to flip a coin 3 times, you're expected to get heads half the time. Well, what's half of 3? Half of 3 is just 3/2. So the expected number of heads is 3 halves. So you can sit there and look at this chart, you can analyze the data, but it's as simple as doing that, right? Now, can you actually get 1.5 heads? No, right? But they're asking the expected number, right? That can be a decimal value or a fraction. All right, next one. Next one's tricky, but not too bad. All right, they're essentially saying they're giving you some information about the conversion rate between numbers. There's 0.305 meters in a foot, 5,280 feet in a mile, and a horse is traveling at the speed of 400 meters per minute. What expression has a value equal to the horse's speed in miles per hour? Okay, so if I have 400 meters per minute, right, and I have but what I really want is meters per hour, right? So let's break down each thing that I want. I want I want miles per hour, all right? But the first thing, right, and what I do have, this is what I want, and what I have is meters per minute. So what I have versus what I want. So, and I need to convert feet. Oh no, I have meters per minute. All right, and eventually I'm gonna have to use these things, the feet per mile, and this part. Well, the first thing I want to do is get rid of the meters per minute, and I want to get it to meters per hour. All right, I'm going to go 400 meters in 1 minute. Well, I can also do 4, and if I'm talking about hours, so then I have 400 times 60. All right, and then I'm going to take that. I also have to get from meters to miles. I want to go all the way from meters to miles, and I'm going to go through feet. All right, along the way, I'm going to hit feet, and I'm going to go feet to miles. So now, that's how I would do that is 0.305 are in 1 foot, and how many feet are in a mile? That's 5,280. So essentially what I'm going to get out of that is A, and that would help me solve this problem. Okay, number 29. If you see a problem like this, you're either going to have one or two things. I haven't read the problem yet, but it's either going to be, just looking at it, it's either going to be a similar figures problem or it's going to be a Pythagorean theorem problem. So you just prepare yourself for one of those, although I will look really bad if it's not one of those type of problems. So let's dive into it. Alan measures the height of a pole to be 3 feet and the length of the shadow to be of the pole to be 5 feet, as shown in the diagram. At the same time, the length of the shadow of a tree is 20 feet. What is the height of the tree? Okay, so this one, if just looking at it, is going to be a similar figures or proportion problem, just as we kind of suspected. It was either going to be that or Pythagorean theorem, so we ended up with a proportion or similar figures problem. So essentially what they're saying is this pole right here is 3 feet. It gives a shadow of 5 feet. So pole to shadow, okay, so let's not call it pole, let's call it object. Object to shadow has to be the same thing as object to shadow. With proportions, with similar figures, we always want to keep it consistent. It doesn't matter the order, but we want to keep it. So there's object 1 to shadow 1, object 2 to shadow 2, right? That matters, all right? But we could have had shadow 1 over object 1 is equal to shadow 2 over object 2. That doesn't matter as much. Okay, so object, as long as you can keep this consistent. So the object 1 is the pole. So we have the pole is 3 feet, the shadow is 5 feet. Object 2 is x feet. I don't know how big it is, but I do know the shadow is 20 feet. So I have 20 times 3 over 5, because I'm going to cross multiply and divide. Alright, and that's going to be 1, that's 4, I'm going to get 12. X is 12 feet. Okay, so I'm done that. Next question is, I think this might be the easiest question we've seen thus far. Alright, the most reasonable unit to use when measuring the length of a leaf, centimeters, grams, kilograms, or meters. Well, meters are too large. These are all weight, so it has to be centimeters. Pretty simple. Number 31, which is not an integer. Okay, here, please remember my advice about not solving, as the square root symbol or the radical symbol is what this is actually called. This is actually called a radical symbol. That acts as a parentheses. You have to do all the operations in there first, and that comes in play when we get to letter C and letter D. Okay, so the first, you get 2 minus 5 equals negative 3. So that can't be right because that's an integer. Then it's 2 times 5, which is 10. That can't be right because that's an integer. Now C, the square root of 25 minus 4. Please do not do this. This is not the square root of, this is not 5 minus 2. If you put 5 minus 2 equals 3, that is wrong. Very, very, very wrong. You cannot do that. This acts like a parentheses. Square root of 25 minus 4 is equal to the square root of 21. The square root of 21 is, I don't know what it is. It doesn't come out evenly, so I'm not even going to try and do it. I just know that it's not an integer, so C is my answer. Alright, next question. Ooh, it's a good one too. Alright, a circle is inscribed in a square with a side length of 10. Alright, what is the area of the shaded region? So essentially what I'm going to do is, this looks harder than it is. Alright, essentially what I have to do is find the area of the square and then area of the circle and then subtract them. If I do the area of the square minus the area of the circle, I'm going to get, that's going to equal area of the shaded part. That should make sense, but I'm just hoping that we get this down. So we have the area of the square. Area of the square is equal to, well, 100, because 10 times 10 is 100. Don't think that one's too difficult. Now the area of the circle is a little bit more tricky. Alright, the area of the circle is a little tricky, not too difficult, but we have to remember the formula is pi times radius squared. Well, I don't know, it doesn't seem like I know radius, but I can find it. I know the diameter is 10. How do I know that? Because this goes all the way across, this 10. So from here to here is 10. So that means the radius is 5, because the radius is a half of the circle, right? Radius is half, not the whole. So we have radius is 5. So pi times 5 squared. Notice I'm not putting in 3.14 for pi. You're not allowed a calculator for this exam, so you're likely going to keep everything just in terms of pi. So I'm going to get 25 pi. So area of the square is 100 minus 25 pi. Okay? Boom. There's that. 100 minus 25 pi. So you should get C there. The height of the cylinder shown is 2 times its diameter. Height of the cylinder is 2 times its diameter. The formula used to find the volume of the cylinder is V equals R squared H pi. I'm sorry, I read it out of order just because I'm used to seeing it as pi R squared H, but the commutative property says I can put it in those numbers in any order because it's multiplication, where R is the radius of the cylinder and H is the height. Okay, if the diameter of the cylinder is 6 inches, what is the volume in inches? Okay, this is just plug and chug. Okay, so we know that I do have to do a little bit of extra math besides plugging and chugging. So the height is 2 times diameter. Well, the diameter is 6, so height is equal to 12. That's simple. I also know that the diameter is 6, so the radius has to be 3. Okay, so we have everything that we need. I have V is equal to R squared H times pi, or R is 3 squared H is 12 times pi. That's going to be 9 times 12 times pi. That's 108 pi. Number 33 should be B. Okay, 34. Next one. A box and whisker plot below represent the high temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit at a certain location on the same day in May for the last 50 years. Okay, what is the range of the data? Okay, so to do this, you're going to have to be able to know how to read a box and whisker plot. It's extremely, extremely simple, all right? This is the the lowest number. This is the highest number. This is the median. Okay. This is the median of the first half of numbers. So it's kind of hard to explain, but all of the numbers from here to here kind of get put into something, and you find the median of that, and that goes there. And then this is the median of we call that quartile 1. This middle one is the real median, and this is the quartile 3, the median here, right? So we have that's the median from here to here. So if I put all the numbers from the real median to the highest number, this little line right here represents that median. All right. For us, it only asks me for the range. All right. The range itself is the biggest number minus the smallest number. The biggest number is 80. The smallest number is 25. That's going to give me 55. Okay. Now the other thing is, if they ask me for what's known as, they'll likely not give me something this simple, right? because some people will just guess to do 80 minus 25. Often what they'll do is what they'll do is they'll ask me for what's known as the interquartile range, and I'll show you how to solve for that really quickly. If I can erase everything here, and it looks like it is stuck on there, so I'm just going to cross this out. So what if they asked me for the interquartile range? So interquartile range rather than just the range, because that's what they usually ask. You're very lucky they asked range, because range is biggest minus smallest. Interquartile range is also very simple to find. It's just this number where this box is minus this box. So 65 minus 40 equals 25 is the interquartile range. But they didn't ask me that, they just asked me the regular old range. The regular old range is 55. Alright, but just in case they do ask the interquartile range, you know how to do it. Alright, number 35. Probability. They've been asking quite a few probability questions, but so let's go through this. A bag contains 4 green, 5 blue, 2 yellow, and 4 orange marbles. She removes 1 marble and keeps it. So this is not replaced. So that's something I want to indicate. Not replaced. Okay. So that means when she takes it out, it's gone forever. Alright, if the marble Katie removed from the bag Kate removed was yellow, what is the probability that the marble Joanne moved was green? So, okay, first I have to see how many total marbles there are. It looks like there are 4 plus 5, that's 9, 11, 4, there's 15 total. Okay, so what's the chance of getting, so first thing she did was, if the first Katie moved a yellow marble from the bag, so now there are there's 1 yellow left, right? So she removed hers, but when Joanne removes hers, there's only 14 left, right? There's only 14 marbles left. Okay, because the yellow one has already been removed. Well, how many, what is the chances that that marble itself is going to be green? Well, there's a 4 out of 14 chance that it's going to be green, right? So your answer should be A. Number 36. Well, just back to 35 for a second. If they had asked me what's the probability of getting a yellow and then green without replacement, it would have been D. All right, because they asked me this and then this. The reason why it's A is because it's not asking for 2 things in a row. It's asking just about the second act. Just asking about the second part, not the first part. They're asking about the yellow marble only. They're not asking about green then yellow. They're just asking about yellow. Number 36. 36, if you rush through this one, you will get it wrong. Okay? A lot of people go see this. They say square root of 16x to the 16th is equal to 4x to the 4th. That's wrong. Okay? To do this, you have to remember the rules of exponents. Alright, because exponents and square roots and radicals all fall under the same family. Okay? So, you know that coefficients, this is not a base, coefficients follow operation. Okay, so we know that, and then base stays the same, and the exponent will follow the rule. Exponent follows rule. Okay, so the coefficient of the square root is, okay, so we have 16. The square root of 16x to the 16th, And then, well, if I have the square root of 16, that's just 4. Because that's the operation. The square root is the operation. So I have the square root of 16 as 4. X is the base. So X serves as my base here. There's that. And then I'm not asking for, so the exponent here. Well, think about it like this. When I'm really doing, right, because you're asking what number times itself, 4x to the power of something times 4x to the power of something gives me 16x to the power of 16. Well, it's not going to be 4 because, remember, when I multiply exponents, what I'm really doing is adding them. So if I got 4x and I put 4 here, that's going to be wrong because 4x to the 4th times 4x to the 4th is going to give me 4x to the 8th, or 16x to the 8th. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for 16x to the 16th, and of course this is not erasing. So if I have 4x, well, what number, if I add it to itself, is going to give me 16? 4x to the 8th. That's 4x to the 8th times 4x to the 8th is going to give me 16x to the 16th. Looks simple, and it is simple, but really tricky in terms of, it's just more of a trick question more than anything. Number 37 is going to be hard to explain. I'll give it a shot to try and explain it, but there's a lot of background knowledge that you require for this, so I'll try to do my best to explain this so you guys understand it. This is trigonometry where it's asking you, there's functions called sine, cosine, sine is sin, cosine is cos, and then tangent, which is tan, right? And how we remember how they're used is this little acronym, SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA is just sine, which means, and that's going to be corresponding with opposite and hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent and hypotenuse. Tangent is opposite and adjacent. That might not mean anything to you, but it will in a second. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the angle, all right? And then I'm going to try and use that with the opposite and the hypotenuse, adjacent and hypotenuse, or opposite and adjacent, okay? So triangle XYZ is shown, the length of XZ is 2 centimeters. The length, a measure of XYZ is 20. Find the value of which expression is equal to the side length of XY. Okay, so first let's understand this is the hypotenuse, okay? The side that's opposite the right angle is always the hypotenuse. You guys know that. Now when I'm talking about what is adjacent, adjacent means next to, okay? Well, the hypotenuse is also adjacent to the 20, but we've also called that a hypotenuse, right? So this side is the adjacent side because it's next to the 20 degrees, all right? Opposite, what's opposite the 20 degrees is this side. That is the opposite side. So it's all in relation to the 20 degrees. So which one would I use? The one that says opposite and hypotenuse, adjacent and hypotenuse, or opposite and adjacent to find XY? Well, XY is the hypotenuse. So it's got to be something that has a hypotenuse in it. And I also want to know another piece of information. So I know the opposite side is 2. So which is the thing that tells me opposite and hypotenuse? Well, the only thing that does that is sine. So I'm going to use sine in this problem. So I know sine of 20 degrees is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. So, right? And if it was cosine, it would be adjacent over the hypotenuse. If it was tangent, it would be tangent of the number is equal to opposite over adjacent. All right. So now what I would do is sine of 20 is equal to, what's the opposite of this? The opposite is 2. The hypotenuse is x. So sine 20 is equal to 2 over x. But I want to put it in terms of x, y. So x, right, I want to put it in terms of x. Because this is really side xy, or sine 20 is equal to 2 over x, where x is really equal to side xy. Okay, but I'm solving for x in this case. So how I would do that is I would multiply both sides by x first to get x on the other side and isolate it. So then I have x sine 20 equals 2. And I divide both sides by sine 20 to bring it over to the other side. So x is equal to 2 over sine 20. I might have to go over this problem again just because it is a completely new concept to everyone. So I'm happy to go over it again, but we're going to move on for now. Seem to be running into a little bit of a technical difficulty here because none of the problems seem to be there. Let's see. Give me 1 second. Let's see if... Okay. So now the problem has popped back up. Let's try and do the remaining problems. 38. Which graph represents the solution set of the inequality? Well, in this case, what I would do is simply just solve this problem out, right? You know that this is going to be a conjunction, but all of your answer choices are conjunctions. So what I'm going to do is I have two problems. 41 is less than 2 or equal to 2x minus 1, and I have 2x minus 1 is less than or equal to 51. Those are two problem sets that I have. All right, then I want to make sure my inequality, putting the variable on the left side. All right, I hope you guys understand what I did there. The alligator is eating 2x minus 1. All right, 1 on both sides. 2x is greater than or equal to 42. Divide by 2. X is greater than or equal to 21. Almost did that wrong for a second. Okay, so, and I know it's going to be a closed circle. All of them are closed circles. All right, which means now I can eliminate C and D because I have 21 as a potential answer. Now let me just do this. So I have to add 1. That's gone. Get 52. 2x is less than or equal to 52. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. X is less than or equal to 26. 26. And that's here. So it's going to be A, right? These are conjunction. If I use that arrow trick, right? They're facing each other. They're conjunctions. Okay. Next one. Next problem, and it is not letting me scroll down. My computer might be overheating because I've done a bunch of these. Alright, now, the stem and leaf plot represents the math scores on a math test. All right. Really quickly, stem and leaf products are incredibly simple. Okay, you just have to understand what they mean. If I have a stem of 5 and a leaf of 5, usually there's a key and it tells you what that means. If there's no key, it means that this is 55, 57, 58. This is 62, 62, 62, 64, 66, 67, 68, so on and so forth. This is 91, this is 100, okay? If I'm talking about that's 91, that's 100, that's 92, that's 92. Okay, so hopefully you get the point. Don't want to just overdo it. And of course, I need to erase this, so I'm going to try to do that quickly. That did not work. So what I'm going to do, because I actually do need, let me see, 1 second. No luck on erasing. Okay, so that got erased. Alright, the median. Alright, so how I would do this is just like I would with anything. I could go back and start crossing numbers out. And I'll do that, but I'm going to show you a quicker way after I do that. Just because otherwise it's going to take you a little bit of time and it can get a little confusing. So this is 100, so that you start at the biggest end and then you go to the smallest end. So 100 is the biggest, 55 is the smallest. Next biggest is here, then that's next. This, 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 this. Alright, you should be getting the point by now, but I'll continue. Just have to be very careful not to make a mistake here, and that's why I'm going to show you an easier way. Boom, boom. I believe you should get 78. 39 is 78. Okay, now we did it that way. It can get a little confusing. The other way to do it is just to count and divide by 2. Alright, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. There are 33 numbers here. If I divide that by 2, that's 16 and a half. Alright, so let's just see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. On the 17th number, right, 16 and a half. On the 17th number, right, you are going to have the median. Let's go the other direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Aha. Now, the next question would be, well, what if it was 16? Well, then, if it was 16, you would count 16 on both sides, and you'd see that it would fall in between 2 numbers. If it fell in between 2 numbers, then you take those 2 numbers, add them up, and divide by 2. All right? Next one, number 40. Oh, we're going to have to deal with imaginary numbers here. Okay? This is actually not difficult at all, but you haven't really learned imaginary numbers. So I'll try and show you, I'll give you a quick little background on imaginary numbers before we dive into this problem. So in terms of imaginary numbers, the imaginary numbers is like if I have the square root of, like normally if I have, this is not an imaginary number, we're supposed to have the square root of 25. That's 5, right? But it's also negative 5, all right? What about the square root of negative 25? Well, it can't be, and a lot of people say, well, that's negative 5. Well, that's not true because negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25. Well, in that case, the square root of negative 25 exists only in the imaginary world. So it's positive or negative 5 imaginary, okay? So we're going to use that information, right? Because it's 5 or negative 5, but it's really an imaginary value. Okay, so if I have x squared plus 49 is equal to 0, what I would do is subtract 49 on both sides, minus 49 on both sides. X squared is equal to negative 49. All right, how I would solve for that is square root x is equal to positive or negative 7i. Okay, so that's 40 is D. (41) The result of this expression. This is what we call matrix. So very, it looks hard, right? You see these and you're like, well, what do I do? It's super simple. One of the easiest problems that you have. All right, what is the result of this expression? There's a plus in the middle, right? So if there's what you're going to do is you're going to go in order and see what corresponds with what. 2 goes with 5, and then the plus in the middle tells me I'm going to add them. So I'm going to get 7 up here. The 3 goes with the 3, and you're going to get 6 here. The 0 goes with the 2, so you're going to get 2 here. And the 4 goes with the 1, so you're going to get 5 here. So you're going to get 7, 6, there's a 2 here, there's a 5 here. That's A. Last one. All right. We have a formula of surface area of a sphere is surface area equals 4 pi r squared, where r is the radius of the sphere. The sphere has a surface area of 16 pi centimeters squared. Okay. Let's go through this, right? The sphere has a surface area. Okay, so we know that 4 pi r squared is equal to surface area. That's all right. But I also know that the surface area is equal to 16 pi. So now it's just simply solving. The first thing I can do is divide by 4 pi. That's gone, divide by 4 pi. I'm just left with r squared is equal to, well, these pi's cancel out, and 16 divided by 4 is just 4. So r squared is equal to 4. The inverse of r squared is the square root. The square root r is equal to 2. That's it. All right, that's all of the ISEE math sections. All right, good luck.